Hi and welcome to my channel, A Country Life. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Peter.
And today we are going to share with you guys a video that is called What's for Dinner. But guess what? We're actually going to start with a dessert. Peter is super excited. He's been wanting to make this for a long time and we have just barely enough ingredients to get it going. So this is something that in our neck of the woods has been called Puppy Chow forever and ever. However, most of the time when I see it like on the back of a cereal box or something like that, they call it Muddy Buddies. Sometimes they'll call it, in this case, whoa, Peter, they'll call it chocolate. What do they call it here? They call it chocolate peanut butter buddy mix. So anyway, it's called all kinds of things. We lovingly refer to it as Puppy Chow, right? Are you a dog? You're being silly. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna just get started here. We have our corn checks. Don't dump it in yet though, okay? We have creamy peanut butter, a stick of butter, chocolate chips, and
powdered sugar.
There we go. So we're gonna start by putting in 3 tablespoons of butter and a half a cup of peanut butter. And then we're just gonna put that in the microwave and melt it. And I rarely measure, so that to me looks like a half a cup. Actually might be a smidge over a half. Okay, Peter, you wanna put that in the microwave for 30 seconds. Okay, so I just realized that we were actually going to adjust this recipe because we don't have enough of the corn checks. We only have about 5 to 6 cups of corn checks, where you actually need to have 9 cups of the corn checks. So I think it's going to be just fine. It's just going to be a little bit creamier here. We put in the full amount of peanut butter, the full amount of butter, and then rather than put in the whole bag of chocolate chips, Peter's just going to pour in about half of this bag of chocolate chips, and that is going to be plenty. So keep going, keep going, keep going. Let's feel the bag. Does that feel like about half? That feels really good. Okay, now he's going to microwave that for 30 seconds, and we're just going to stir after each 30 seconds until it's fully melted. Does it look pretty melty?
That's gross.
Okay, next up is just a splash of vanilla. If we were doing the whole thing, we would put in a full teaspoon, but since we're not, we're just gonna add in about a half a teaspoon or so of vanilla. Just kind of brightens the flavors really. And then as soon as you have that all stirred up, Peter, you can put in all the corn checks. Now if you want to find the actual recipe for this, really on the back of any box of the Aldi brand, which is Millville. And so then you just have to mix it all the way around. It is best to choose a bowl that you have a lid for, because you're going to see, whoops, I just spilled. You're gonna see in a minute here that we're gonna add powdered sugar and give it a good toss. I am gonna measure this out. We're gonna put about 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. Let me measure it first before you get too grabby, okay? Put in that's a little too much. Okay, so you just pour it all right on top. We're gonna put the lid on here quick.
We gotta put more stuff in here.
And then do you want to do the shaking?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you just kind of shake it back and forth. Come over here into the camera so everyone can see you. Open it. And it looks like we need to do some more mixing.
I did a bit more. And a lot of it seems to be sticky. As you can see, this is a super forgiving recipe. Yes, you can. It's a very, very forgiving recipe. And it's great for making with kids because you really can't screw it up. Make sure you get it. There you go, upside down. Oh, geez. It's all at the bottom.
That's okay.
Now it's all at the bottom.
Okay, let's look at it now. Ooh, that looks really good. Okay, so this is just what you want it to look like. We're actually gonna let this cool for a little bit.
Yes. Okay, just have one.
You can have one, yes. Okay, Peter's gonna be the official tester now. Take another one.
Yummy.
That's good stuff, isn't it? So it is Tuesday now, and tonight for supper I am making baked pot roast and gravy. We're going to be having a salad, some bread, and pickles. So let me just show you guys. I'm still working out of this cookbook. This is the Goosberry Patch One Pot Meals Cookbook, and here's the recipe on page 42. It's called Baked Pot Roast and Gravy. And so here's what I have for this recipe. I have a pot roast right here. The recipe calls for 3 to 4 pounds. I did not weigh this. This is from the beef that we bought. I'm guessing it's probably around 4 pounds. I have just over 3 cups of hot water here, a pack of onion, this is, yes, soup and recipe mix, onion soup mix, 2 cans of the Campbell's Golden Mushroom, some meat tenderizer, some kosher salt, 2 onions. I have 3 quite large potatoes. Again, the recipe does call for 5 to 6 potatoes, but we're only going to be serving probably 6 of us tonight, I think, so this is going to be plenty, and then a bag of baby carrots. So I'm going to start assembling everything. I'm going to start here with this large roasting pan. I like to pretty much spray everything that I use. It just seems to help the cleanup go a little easier. I'm just going to sprinkle on some of this meat tenderizer. So meat tenderizer actually has in it an enzyme that helps to break up the fibers of the muscle, and that's what helps to tenderize it. This is seasoned tenderizer, so I'm going to go pretty heavy with this, and then I think I'm actually going to just skip the salt. I'm just going to set that aside and bring out my water here. I'm going to put in 1 can of the golden mushroom soup. I'm going to add the onion soup mix, and I'm going to give it a stir. And then I'm going to pour it right over top of the roast. I actually think that it works better to pour it off to the side because I don't want to pour all of, I don't want to rinse all the meat tenderizer from on top of the meat here. So at this point, it's ready to go into the oven at 350 degrees for 1.5 to 2 hours. I'm just going to peel up my potatoes here and then get those cut into smaller chunks. I'm also going to prepare my onions here into slices. All right, so it has been actually just about 2 hours. I'm just taking the roast out of the oven here. I'm going to put on my potatoes and my carrots and my onions. I'm going to put that in here, and then I'm going to pour the 2nd can of golden mushroom soup over the top. I'm going to put it back in for 30 minutes. I think it's going to have to go a little bit longer than 30 minutes just because all these vegetables will have to get soft. I think it's going to take longer than 30 minutes. The recipe says 30, so we'll check it then and see what happens.
melty on the back,
Oh, I see.
so you just flip it right on.
Uh-huh. Maybe a little better.
Because this is really big.
Uh-huh.
And
So I did just take the pot roast out of the oven here, and it was in for a long time. So it started out for 2 hours. Then the recipe, if you recall me saying, it said 30 minutes additional with the vegetables. So I'm going to pull out a potato here and just kind of see if it, okay, that seems to be nice and soft. It looks like the potatoes did finally get soft. So this was in for at least 3 hours, maybe even a little smidge longer. You guys are like full of manners here. Fighting in the background, burping in the background.
And she also smacked my butt with plates.
Okay,
with
nice.
No paper towel.
burped.
Okay, so anyway, here's what's for supper. We're just gonna get real fancy here, have some salad, a little ranch, some bread and butter. I put this out just because the little kids, I don't know how much of the roast they're necessarily going to be eating, and then some pickles. So there we go. I am looking forward to pulling this out and seeing how tender it is, because that's really what I'm going for, is a nice tender roast. So final thoughts on this baked pot roast and gravy recipe. I think that there were, one, way too many vegetables. There's a lot of vegetables left over for the amount of meat. Next time, I will definitely cut the vegetables way back. I'm also going to put the vegetables in much earlier because it took over an hour to get the vegetables done, where the recipe said it was going to take 30 minutes. So those are my two takeaways from this recipe. Flavor was, I just thought, phenomenal. I did like that the pot roast got nice and tender, and I really like the golden mushroom soup much better than regular cream of mushroom soup. Okay, today happens to be Friday, and I'm going to make a brand new recipe to us, and it is called slow cooker enchiladas. We're also going to have that with rice and grapes tonight for supper. It happens to be the hottest day of the year. We are having heat indexes of anywhere from 105 to 110, so I think this is going to be great. Just put this in the crock pot, let it do its thing, and we'll be ready for supper when it's time. This recipe comes from a cookbook called One Pot Meals, and I'm going to be using this cookbook this week for 3 brand new recipes to us. And so I will put a link in the description box below over to this cookbook if you're interested in looking more into it. So here's what we have. I actually have 1.5 pounds of ground beef. Even though the recipe calls for 1 pound, this is just how I have my meat packed. It takes 4 corn tortillas, 1 diced onion, a can of drained sweet corn, a can of rinsed and drained pinto beans, cream of mushroom soup, nacho fiesta, oops, the other way around, fiesta nacho cheese soup, red enchilada sauce, and then sliced black olives. I am not going to put the sliced black olives into the slow cooker just because I don't like black olives, so we'll serve those on the side when it's all done. I'm going to be layering all of this in my slow cooker here. My small crock pot is actually in the wash. There was a little nose peeking in.
Hello.
Hi, Joe. And so let's get going on this recipe today. Good job.
Thank you.
So I got everything all mixed up, and here is what it's looking like. That has the meat and everything in it. You'll have to excuse the background noise. The kids are watching Curious George right now. So what I'm going to do next here is just take my corn tortillas. I'm going to layer one into my little slow cooker here, and then just get all of, and I'm going to do that 4 times, layering up with a quarter of this mix, and then I'm also going to put on about a half a cup of cheese each time. Since that actually starts with the hot meat and then you just layer everything pretty quick, the recipe does say that it should be set on high for 1 hour or until the cheese melts. I'm not using a traditional crock pot. I'm actually using my slow cooker. Usually these seem to be actually a little bit hotter, so I'm not really sure. I'm going to set this on 4 and just kind of come back in 30 to 45 minutes and double check on it to make sure that it's doing what it needs to do. Okay, so this is how the cheesy enchiladas are plating up here. For the kids, I did sprinkle on some black olives there, and for me, I'm just serving it up with some sour cream. And so we haven't tried it yet. I'm gonna have to give it a try here.
Disgusting, Mom.
Oh, Peter's over here trying it already. What do you think?
Good.
You like it? I'm gonna take a quick little bite here, see how this tastes.
Yeah. So that's my flag, and I colored the words blue, green, and then I colored green.
Horseshoes?
It is good. It's not too spicy.
And my name.
All right, so that is going to be supper on this Friday. Today is Wednesday, and I am going to be making another new recipe to us. Again, it comes out of this cookbook, One Pot Meals. And today's recipe is called Marvelous Minestrone. Now, I am changing it up just a bit, and the reason is the original recipe does not call for any meat. It's just simply a vegetable minestrone soup, and so I know that everybody in my family is going to like a little meat added to that. So I picked up this mild ground Italian sausage. I am going to brown that and add that to the soup. Here are the other ingredients. I need some olive oil, an onion, some minced garlic, celery, carrots, a leek, potatoes, cabbage. So it does have a lot of fresh vegetables in it, which I'm really looking forward to this. This is the very first time I've ever cooked with a leek, and so I'm kind of smelling it. You want to smell it, Peter? What does it smell like?
Onion.
It smells like an onion, doesn't it? Just smells like a gigantic, or looks just like a huge green onion. So I am going to be putting that in. And then it uses some beef broth. I did have to get an extra one because I only had one on hand, and so this one I picked up at Walmart. It's going to take 12 ounces of tomato paste, some salt and pepper to taste, rosemary, and then at the very end I'll be putting in elbow macaroni, kidney beans, and topping it with Parmesan cheese. So that's a quick overview of the recipe. Now let's get going. So I guess I didn't need to open up my new olive oil because I had a little left here, but I'm just going to put a little olive oil here into my pan, and then I'm going to put in 5 celery ribs chopped, 1 teaspoon of minced garlic, and 1 medium onion diced. Okay, now that this is nicely fragrant, I'm going to put in my pork sausage. So this is nicely done over here, and I just wanted to point out that although it might seem unnecessary to saute the celery and the onion and the garlic, especially when making a soup because it's already going to be cooking in the soup, it really adds a lot of flavor to it. I have a chicken and wild rice, I think that's what it is, recipe that starts doing this with doing the same thing where you saute up the celery, the onion, the garlic, and one time I did skip that step because I was in a hurry, and it really did make a difference in the flavor. So definitely this is not a step that you want to skip. It adds a lot of flavor to the soup. So all right, this is done. I'm going to put in the 12 ounces. I don't know where Peter went. Everyone's asking me that. I don't know. I got 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary.
This thing? This?
Yes. Pepper to taste. We like pepper, so I'm actually going to put a lot of pepper in there. This is the first time making this recipe, so I'm not really sure how much salt. I'm going to put in maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon. That was about 1/4 or 1/2 teaspoon. I'm going to give this a really good stir, bring it to a boil, reduce the heat to low. I'm going to cover it, and then I'm going to simmer for 1 hour. I do feel like it could use a little more liquid, honestly, especially if I still have to put in noodles later on. I feel like I'm going to need some more liquid in here, but we'll see. Like I said, this is a new recipe to us. It looked really good and sounded really, really good to me. You want to stir? Did you wash your hands?
Yes.
Okay. I like cabbage. I like all these vegetables. I like kind of like really good chunky soup. Joe likes soup too, so I think the fact that it has meat in it and then it is going to have elbow macaroni, I think he's really going to like that. We'll see what everybody else thinks of this. I'm eager to get this on the stove, so let's do that, Joe. 1 hour. Okay? Okay. All right, so I did make a wardrobe change here. We were actually out swimming while the soup was doing its simmering. So I'm back in here, and let's stir this around. This is what the soup is looking like. It's really thick, and I am going to just let you guys know that I did put the additional 2 cups of beef broth in here that was, you know, left in that one little carton, because it just seemed like it was going to need something like that. I grabbed just a loaf of, this is, I think, the cheapest bread that Walmart carries. This was 88 cents for 1 pound, 2 ounces of bread. So I pulled that out of the freezer. I'm going to put into my soup now 3/4 cup of elbow macaroni, and I'm also going to put this jar of kidney beans in. I'm going to drain most of the liquid off of that. I just took a quick little taste, and it doesn't taste too salty. It tastes just right. That was with about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we are going to serve the soup with this flaked, or what do they call this? Flaked? Shaved, with shaved Parmesan cheese. I should mention to you that the soup is going to simmer uncovered for 30 minutes with the noodles and the kidney beans in it. And then I was just reviewing the recipe again, and this is kind of neat. In this cookbook, if there's a little play button next to the recipe, that means that there's actually a YouTube video for it. So if you are interested in watching probably a much more professional version of this recipe being made, you can check out the link in my description box, as well as if you are interested in the cookbook itself, I will also put a link in the description box below over to Amazon, where I'm sure this cookbook is available. I haven't looked yet, but I'm guessing that it is. Okay, so here's the finished product of the marvelous minestrone. I'm just going to put actually a lot of Parmesan cheese on there because I like that a lot. So we're going to serve that up with, I had just a can of pineapple, and then we have some bread and butter. So that is going to be supper here on this Wednesday night.